Hi, I'm Dan. Thanks for checking in on Dimgaard this week. So I'd created the survey, I'd gotten good feedback, and that was going to be the topics that I was going to be making these videos on. And then something happened, and I was like, no, I guess I've got to preempt that schedule and insert this one. So what happened is not something that happens a lot. But it is something that definitely happens, and it's when it happens, it is disorienting, right? It is and it's not something that typically you're going to find in other channels, right? So the thing that happens is you're the DM and you have this framework of a story that you are expecting to be presenting, right? So, it could be like Hoard of the Dragon Queen. You're like, okay, here is the flow of that story, right? Like the PCs are exposed to this rampaging cult of Tiamat, and then they are going to rise as champions and heroes and work against that cult, right? That's the overarching story of Hoard of the Dragon Queen, and then goes on into Rise of Tiamat. Or Rime of the Frost Maiden, right? There's this deity who has brought this otherwise innocent valley under perpetual winter, and heroes will arise and eventually bring a resolution to that in a positive way, being exposed to the elements along the way, and finally being exposed to the Frost Maiden herself, and have a climactic event and hopefully resolve the situation. Right? So the DM, you as the DM, you've got this material, you've got this gist of a story arc, and you're like, that's that, and then you are expecting, and usually it is a valid expectation that the players are going to buy into that, right? That the players are going to say, okay, yeah, we understand the gist of this story, and we're going to explore that story and flesh it out with you, with our characters as heroes. But sometimes the players say, no, we're not. That's not the story we want to follow, right? That's not. So like, specifically in the Drow Conspiracy, which is still one of my favorite Dimgaard campaigns. And the overarching story is the Drow Empire. It insinuates itself into Dimgaard, and heroes arise to protect Dimgaard from the takeover of that empire, and eventually to have the opportunity to overturn that empire entirely, right? And the players said, like, we're 6 sessions in to this presentation, and they said, no, that's not what we're going to do, right? We want to be something different than that, right? We don't like that story, I guess. Whatever the players are, and that does happen at times, right? So you've showed up with the story arc that you're expecting to flesh out, and the players are just like, no, I don't like that story. So at that point, you have to decide what you're going to do, right? I really don't think that it is in anyone's best interest to shoehorn that story into a group of unwilling players, right? I don't think it is going to be pleasant or fun for anybody to say, yeah, I don't care what the players want to do. I'm going to insist that this is the story arc, and I'm going to shovel you into that story arc if it has to be kicking and screaming, right? I don't think that that is I don't think that that's a valid um, approach to take to your weekly game. Um, so if that's not the case, then you have to either persuade the players that, look, this is the story that I have, right? This is the story arc that I have, and I really want you to participate in this story arc. But if you don't have the persuasion skills to accomplish that, to change their mind, then your choices are, abandon that group. Like, say, okay, I'm going to go find me some players who will. But almost always, these are not players that you want to leave, right? They're people that you have assembled and have an inclination to play with in the first place. And so the thought of, we're just going to go a different way. You can turn over the sometimes you can say, okay, well, I can't DM for you then. Like let's get someone else to do the DMing here that can present a story that we're all going to agree on, right? But a lot of times that's not an option either, because DMs are hard to come by. Like, willing DMs are hard to come by. So then that leaves the option of saying, okay, I'm going to change the story arc that I'm presenting, right? I'm going to if this is not the story arc, and you have to be willing to examine the divergence that the players have insisted on taking as thus far in the game, and say, okay, I'm going to craft a campaign that will indulge that direction until it is completed. Now, that direction to completion may be a week, it may be 5 years, right? Like you could find out, I thoroughly enjoy this direction, and it is rife with story building and world building opportunities, and I can't wait for the next session and to see where this is going to go, right? That has been my experience in previous instances when this has occurred. Other instances, not so much like that. Other instances, it's turned out that the story that they're wanting to tell is very clearly and unequivocally and a path to quick destruction, right? They're like, no, we're screw that. We know there's a dragon there, and we don't care that it's going to eat us. We want to go fight that dragon, right? So, one session and that story comes to completion, or whatever the deviation is that they're insisting upon, the different story that they are insisting on taking the campaign in the direction of. Now, what we have in Dimgaard is we have a large collection of we call them special encounters, right? So they are typically things that have occurred commonly as deviations from the expected story, and you're like, okay, we need to indulge the players' inclinations in that direction. So, for example, it's not uncommon at some point for players to wind up murdering someone who is strong in a religious capacity, right? Like it can happen at any level, where someone is a religious zealot or a cultist of some kind, and the players have just said, no, F that guy. He's a religious kook or maniac or inherently evil, and we are going to kill him. We're going to murder him, right? Like, he's already defenseless. We've captured him. We've bound him. He's already defenseless. We're going to murder him. And so in that situation, which is a common situation, we have a series of special encounters that involve revenants, right? And so we can present those revenants, and then consequently, because of that special encounter, usually the next downtime opportunity, the player will go in and satisfy the situation, have ceremony cast on the body or something like that, or maybe serve some penance against the offended greater power, or in some way appease the offended greater power, or make it to where the offended spirit will move on to its eternal rest, instead of reanimating and coming and killing him, trying to kill him every time. And then we have a whole host of special encounters centered around Inquisitors of the One True Faith that we can roll out the next session if players do something that is clearly an offense to the One True Faith. Like in this campaign, you got an elvish wizard who decides to launch a fireball in the middle of a dwarven tavern, right? And the point had been made about the position of the One True Faith on unregulated arcane magic and elves, and he insisted on doing it anyway. So there were special encounters revolving around that as a consequence. And then a similar thing, right, where you have downtime activities to resolve the issue. So in that particular case, the subsequent downtime, which was supposed to have been about 5 days, where they could have crafted scrolls or done any of the other downtime things that one normally does, they had to spend that with the authorities of the One True Faith, reconciling the situation, or be branded outlaws. And then that would have had a consequence of its own with other special encounters, right? If you're branded an outlaw of the One True Faith, then you run into the Fultons or the St. Cuthbertines or whoever, who are there to round up the criminals of the One True Faith. So all that to get to, you can at this point in Dimgaard construct a pretty robust campaign out of these special encounters. A campaign that will take you through at least several sessions, right? That where you can grab a handful of these special encounters that seem appropriate to the situation that you have, and present them as an adventuring day. And then we also have these standalone adventures that there's a very good chance that you will have a session out of one of those, where you'll find one of those that is appropriate to the situation where they've deviated from the storyline. But those, so that whole strategy is really a stopgap effort, right? Because you really want to get everything into a coherent, integrated campaign. And I wish I could tell you that, oh yeah, Dimgaard can do that for you, but Dimgaard can't. Whenever the players decide we're going to go off on a completely different story, and you as the DM have decided that your only option is to indulge that, then we can provide you some helping tools along the way. But ultimately, it is going to be work on your part to prepare, for that. You're gonna have to do the encounter building and the story building around that storyline on your own. And so I don't know. Maybe you have a different experience when players decide that they don't want to follow the storyline of the prepared material that you have there, whether it's something that you have acquired like Dimgaard or a WotC book or Adventure League or whatever. So maybe you've had a different experience where the players are like, yeah, we don't want to do that thing. We want to do something very, very different. And you have a different option than the ones that I gave here. I would be thoroughly interested in knowing what that option is, right? If there is an option in that situation that I don't know about, man, yeah, I tell you, I would love to know that. So if you do have that, please, put it in the comments or send me an email, get me on Twitter or Facebook or Reddit or somewhere in Discord. Let me know. Yeah, here's something you didn't consider, Dan. That would be fantastic. Or if you disagree with my line of reasoning, if you think, well, here's where you made an incorrect analysis of the in reason. Yeah, point that out too. I want to know if that's. And then of course, it's always very validating to hear from people who agree with you, right? So if you want to encourage me and say, no, Dan, we agree with what you're saying, that would be great as well. So really, if you have something relevant to share in the comments or with me in one of the other media channels, that's going to be great to me, and I would love to hear that. But until then, I do want to thank you for tuning in this week. If you thought this was useful, please hit the like button so that it gets bumped in the algorithm for other people to see. You might even subscribe if you're finding that these as a trend are useful to you and you want to be there each week whenever I publish a new one. So until next week, I do appreciate your time, and we'll see you the next time.